Welcome to R&R Livin' Life. In this episode, we finish our Murray River adventure as we continue on through South Australia. We were sad to leave Lake Bonny, though not the -1.1 degree morning. It had been such a picturesque and relaxing spot. Today, we begin our travels by making our way towards Morgon, following the Goyder Highway on the northern side of the Murray, opposite Waikerie, past pumpkin and melon paddocks, and a huge levee bank for some distance. We stopped to check out the floodplains and wetlands of Loch Luna, a 1,905 hectare game reserve adjacent to the smaller Marook Game Reserve, boasting numerous narrow creeks and shallow swamps that provide important habitats for many aquatic birds and mammals, before stopping to check out the Overland Hotel on the old coach road. Such an interesting history, not only of the hotel but the area surrounding it. When the New South Wales gold rush began in 1851, Overland Corner developed as a point where timber was supplied to fuel paddle steamers taking prospectors up the river. The historic Overland Hotel, located on the banks of the river in the Riverland area of South Australia, was built in 1859 by the Brand brothers for pioneer pastoralist James Chambers of Codoogla Station. Originally, it consisted of a police station, horse staging building, blacksmiths and wheelwright shops, and a general store, and by the 1890s it was recognised as an overnight camping spot for the Overland drovers and provided a staging point for the coach route from New South Wales to Adelaide. Sometimes up to 30,000 head of sheep grazed the river flats near the hotel. It was delicensed in 1898, but continued as a general store and post office for many years. The hotel was constructed of fossilised limestone, 1.5 metres thick, and is the oldest building in the Riverland region. On leaving the Overlander Hotel, we passed through the dense mallee scrub in the northern part of Pingannook Conservation Park that provides shelter to a range of wildlife, including kangaroos, echidnas, hairy-nosed wombats, fat-tailed dunnarts, and a rare mallee fowl. The area closer to the Murray featured open mallee with large areas used for wheat farming and then on past fruit orchards. In some places on our journey we could see to the other side of the Murray. I was intrigued by the slow-growing tough mallee trees with their multiple stems, often a rich reddish colour. Grubbing the mallee was a laborious and expensive task that led to some early settlers inventing some effective machines, such as the scrub or mallee roller, allowing for mullerising of the trees that could then be burnt, and a few years later the stump jump plough. The mallee is really an incredibly tough tree. I think it is sad to see the destruction and clearing of thousands of hectares of natural mallee scrubland for wheat farms. But then again, people need to be fed. It was then on to Morgon. What an interesting historic town it is. The town is located on what is often referred to as the Great Bend, the Great Elbow, or simply Northwest Bend on the mighty Murray. Because of its location, it became a strategic point for overlanders with stock to leave the watercourse and head for Adelaide, and for the same reason became an inland port to take produce from the upstream riverboat trade to Adelaide. During the 1800s, Morgon was the home port for hundreds of paddle steamers which carried cargo and passengers up the Murray-Darling River system. In its heyday, Morgon became the second busiest port in South Australia, behind Port Adelaide, dispatching 6 trains a day from the long queues of paddle steamers and barges. Morgon, therefore, is one of the truly historic Australian towns. There were many reminders of Morgon bygone era, the wharf, the railway station, the museum, the heritage walk and shops. A conservation park, fossil quarry, wildlife sanctuary, antique shop and galleries were all there for us to enjoy. We enjoyed seeing the flood indicator pole near the boat ramp that clearly marked the flood levels of the Murray here at Morgon. From the lookout where we had parked, we had a panoramic view of the town and the river, and from there we walked down to the historic port where the restored wharf precinct captures the early river trading days, and the town's museum brings to life the story of the paddle steamer era. The historic walk took us around some of the amazing historic buildings in town. The Landseer building, once a shipping agent's storehouse, filled with a remarkable collection of old engines and wagons, even a mural made from wool, and the historic railway station that once handled an assortment of cargo and passengers transferring from river to rail, that has been transformed into a museum of river and rail history, with most of the historic buildings, including the Customs House and Courthouse, located on Railway Terrace. We walked past the two historic hotels that sit opposite each other, facing the riverfront. We did not visit all of the 46 historic places of interest around town. Also, because of its location, it was ideally suited for a pumping station to pipe water to the mid-areas of the state, becoming the commencing point of the 320-kilometre Morgon-Whyalla pipeline constructed during World War II to Whyalla in the state's far north. Where we were parked was a cane commemorating the expedition of Captain Charles Sturt, the first European to visit the area, who passed by in a rowboat in 1830 before he reached Lake Alexandrina. Then, in 1838, the first Europeans to visit Overland by horseback was the expedition of Hill, Oakton, Willis and Wood. These four young men in their 20s, all being livestock importers from the eastern colonies, formed an exploration party in Adelaide with the intention of being the first to take livestock overland from New South Wales to South Australia, following the Murray River, having to find a viable route through the Mount Lofty Ranges between Adelaide and the Murray River, and were the first Europeans to visit the Riverland region, whether from Adelaide or from the eastern colonies. On leaving Morgon, we continued on our way to Burra, though just over 80 kilometres away. It was truly amazing to see the marginal country where farmers were trying to make a living off what appeared to be just sand. I was having a hard time believing that it was cost-effective to farm this area. The land was covered in little scrubby bushes with sheep hidden in the salt bushes. There were many ruins of houses that were a reminder of the foolishness of those early settlers who arrived in good seasons only to watch drought set in and see the failure of crops. The road bears grim testament to the fact that this is extremely marginal land. Then, to highlight it even further, just before midday the wind picked up, and we knew we were in for blowing dust, the likes of which we had not seen before. Even though we had experienced dust storms in Queensland, this was next level. All that topsoil just being blown away. Not only was there blowing dust, but we were driving into a headwind as well. Just on midday we stopped in Burra, a National Heritage listed town in South Australia, known for its well-preserved 19th century mining history, especially its Victorian-era copper mining past that lies east of the Clare Valley in the Bald Hills Range, to stretch our legs and have a bite to eat. The settlement developed around the Burra Creek and lies nestled in a valley surrounded by bare, rolling hills. Burra became a thriving mining community with the discovery of copper in 1845, and by 1850 the town was Australia's largest inland settlement. The copper produced at this site revived the colony's flagging economic outlook during the crucial time of the 1840s and was responsible for a mass influx of settlers, predominantly miners and smelter workers from Cornwall and Wales, with the Burra mine the largest mine in Australia for 15 years. Until 1860, the Burra mine was the largest metals mine in Australia, and from 1845 to 1877, the mine produced approximately 50,000 tonnes of copper. Then in 1971, the mine was reopened as a modern open-cut mine, operating for a decade with 24,000 tonnes of copper extracted. Originally, the town began as a single company mining town that by 1851 was a set of townships, company, private and government owned collectively, known as the Burra. The Burra copper mine was established in 1848, mining the copper deposit discovered in 1845. Miners and townspeople migrated to Burra, primarily from Cornwall, Wales, Scotland and Germany. The mine first closed in 1877, briefly reopened again early in the 20th century, and for the last time from 1970 to 1981. From as early as 1843, shepherding had been common around Burra, with pastoral pioneers such as James Stein and William Peter being granted grazing rights for their flocks on unsurveyed land. Agriculture had been delayed by the slow surveying of hundreds, an administrative division that is geographically part of a larger region, as until these had been done, there was no freehold or leasehold land, but only grazing rights. As Burra lies almost on Goyder's 1865 line that runs roughly east-west across South Australia and is rated at the edge of marginal land for farming, with rainfall usually too low to support cropping and land being suitable only for grazing. Related to that, the line also marks a distinct change in vegetation. To the south it is comprised mainly of mallee scrub, while saltbush predominates in the north of the line. When the mine was exhausted and closed, the population shrank dramatically, and the townships for the next 100 years supported pastoral and agricultural activities and became a pastoral centre, with the rise of a successful merino industry and sheep trading centre until the mid-20th century, bringing further prosperity to the town. As we wandered the town, we checked out many of the original streets with original curbing and historic buildings with architecture reflecting the strong influence of Cornish miners who had brought their culture and building styles, with its distinctive use of rich local bluestone that gives a unifying effect to many buildings, regardless of their form or age, to South Australia. Paxton Square and the cottages in Thames Street were among the first company housing in Australia. After lunch we drove up to the mine and town lookout, where we had a clear view of the barren landscape containing the artificial hills of mine spoilings, as well as abandoned buildings, various ruins and archaeological sites. Of particular interest were the three chimneys, the remains of the three traditional Cornish engine houses, the powder magazine that is now one of the oldest surviving buildings in the area. From the lookout we could see the dust moving across the hills, so much topsoil being blown away. We had planned to camp at the Burra showgrounds, but with the sides of the hill moving and with no protection from the wind creating an extremely dusty camp, we decided to move on. Rick and I tried to capture on video the blowing dust on the hills above the showgrounds, just the sheer magnitude of topsoil being blown across the hillside, but sadly for some reason these short videos were corrupted, so could not add them. But I hope the few photos taken of the hills show some of the dust. Unfortunately, they do not do justice to what we were seeing. The landscape was forever changing, not just by the blowing dust. Even some of the photos seem to have added intensity to them, as the colours just don't seem to follow what was previously there. But I have not changed any of them other than the angle they were taken from, either out the windscreen or the driver's side, or straight ahead out the open window, though there is an occasional smudge in some caused by insects on the windscreen, while some of the photos are a little dull due to the dust that was around. I was still trying to get my head around how farmers could make a living in this area, from dry dusty paddocks, then red ploughed paddocks, where farmers had ploughed around rocky outcrops, to abandoned farmhouses, to newer farm buildings and silos, to fallow fields with stubble left in the hope of keeping the topsoil from blowing away, to bare ground and then rocky outcrops. It amazed me how farmers ploughed around these outcrops, using every available inch of ground for cropping. Around mid-afternoon, as we were driving into a headwind, we decided to stop at Booborowie, at a donation camp, and made camp behind a hedge of pine trees where we were protected from the wind. It was well worth the stop, with clean amenities not far from where we had camped. Even though it had been windy, Booborowie was a great overnight camp. The township was proclaimed in 1877 and is named after the nearby Booborowie waterhole, a small seasonal waterhole on Walton Palace Creek, about 1 kilometre northwest of town. Today the district is a farming community, chiefly producing wool, wheat, lucerne and canola. In 1843, Dr. William James Brown and his brother Dr. John Harris Brown took up the Booborowie run, and then in 1851 they purchased a crown lease of 153 square miles, followed by the purchase of a 46,978 acre lease in 1853. The Brown brothers established a merino stud and ran shorthorn cattle. They then went on to purchase properties on the Adelaide Plains at Mount Gambier, the Flinders Ranges and the Eyre Peninsula, and were instrumental in establishing Katherine in the Northern Territory. This led to a large sheep and cattle drive under the supervision of Alfred Giles to leave South Australia in 1878. Rick and I will leave you here in Booborowie as we shelter from the blowing dust. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Give us a thumbs up if you have. Join us next episode as we visit Port Pirie and Port Germain before making our way to Port Augusta. Stay safe and enjoy life. Cheers for now. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, living life.